with another banger.
Back with a two-part banger, two-part
Yes,
banger.
sir. Yeah, yeah.
But for part uno, we're gonna get it cracking. We'll recap the three quarterfinals at the World Cup that we didn't talk about the other day, obviously, because when we came in, we recapped the Le Bleu Morocco. So there were the three matches we talked about. There was Spain, Belgium, and then Norway and England, and then Argentina, Switzerland. So we'll recap those, and then we'll come back for a little part two action, and then we'll get your thoughts on the semifinal matchups. But before we get there, you got to start somewhere, right? So I'm gonna toss it over to you, my brother. Uh, Not sure where you want to start, but we're just gonna get it cracking and see where this baby takes us.
Yeah. We the last game in Los Angeles, man, on Friday. That's how you know that this tournament is coming to an end. And you're starting to feel the tournament coming to an end because there are no games for 2 days. And there's only four more games left. So Spain, Belgium at SoFi. Spain edge out the win, 2-1. Um, Belgium are snake bitten. Yuri Tielemans gets injured not only in he gets injured in warm-ups of the game. I don't know how that just that is such a rarity to happen. I can't even remember the last time. I do remember the last time it happened. I just can't remember when. So for him to pick up that injury in warm-ups is a devastation. And then T-Baw, with his quad hydration break, everything, he was still out there. And then Rudy Garcia decides to take him off. I felt like Courtois saying that he felt like he was good to go and he didn't ask to get subbed out, but rather Rudy Garcia decided to sub him out is a bit of, hey, don't blame me. I wanted to stay out there. But I mean, he did say, the team is above all else. But I don't know if that's something that you need to say necessarily. Anyways, Lamans comes in and off a rebound, Magic Mikel Merino gets it done. And Mikel Merino is so underrated. There's a skill to having positional awareness and being reactive. And this is a guy who does that so well, whether it's, and you know what? He comes in the clutch, not only for country, but also for club. Whether it's being a target in the box, right? When crosses are coming in and he's always accurate and precise, or again, being at the right place at the right time. And this is the second game where he hits a game winner for Spain, and they move on. I thought Belgium at first struggled, and then that equalizer gave them so much confidence. So, and then just I think the life kind of got sucked out of them when Courtois gets subbed out. But that's also just poor defense from Ngoy. He did not react quick enough to clear the ball. He honestly he stood there. He thought Le Mans would save it would grip it and not block it in harm's way, and he just stood there. And again, Marino pounced on it. So I think with Belgium, I don't think nobody expected them to make it to the semis, and Doku looked good out there. He also did get exposed defensively, but simultaneously he was also, pushing the ball up. Spain had to foul him a lot. Otherwise, a breakaway could have happened. So it was a good game overall. You hate to see it end in a manner of T-Ball getting subbed out, and Belgium as a whole have a lot to reflect on and look ahead at. You already saw T-Ball say that he wants a year off from Belgium games and that he would like to come back for the Euros, but I don't think the Belgian FA would accept that. They also have to, move on. I'm talking about De Bruyne, Romelu, Axel Witsel. So, I think, I wanna applaud Rudy Garcia. He flew under the radar this whole tournament. Not many knew what to expect from him, and he made, evidently the right calls at the right time. Thinking about the Senegal game and their comeback there. While also Senegal choked that, also a part of it is Belgium have to go out and execute, and that's what they did. And the um, shellacking they gave the US in the round of 16, and then playing Spain to a tough game. But overall, I think Spain are just getting it done. Nobody has been particularly impressed with their performances. It hasn't been like a scenario of a thorough and complete domination. There are stretches in the game where they allow their opponents to have some momentum, and but they keep getting it done. They keep moving on, and for Nico Williams to come back in and get some minutes is a great sign for them. I've said it before the tournament even started. If Spain want to do what they set out to do, they need him to be effective. So we'll see if he starts next game on Tuesday, but they're just getting it done.
Yeah, dude. It's always, I always enjoy these conversations because it allows me to kind of like just kind of lock into what you're saying, so that way, because I see the game through a different lens. Not that we see it differently, but like in the sense that I can see it through your eyes. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that was incredibly well said. On all fronts. I think all three of these matchups, I feel like we could be here for about 5 hours chopping it up. To be honest with you, um, and that doesn't even get to the second, to the semifinals, which is why we got to split it up into two parts. But um, yeah, I think everything you said was incredibly valid. I tip my cap to Belgium. I know a lot of people, even coming into the tournament, myself included. I think it's one of those things where you're well aware that the golden generation, quote unquote, there weren't, that ship kind of came and went, maybe in some aspects, but a lot of those guys are still around and kicking it, and I think it's a testament to those guys that uh, they were able to find their way into a quarterfinal, and they had a shot, and that's in spite of all the things that you mentioned, all the things that kind of went against them. Um, so yeah, look, I give credit where it's due. I know a lot of the rhetoric will revolve around Spain, and rightfully so. That won the match, but I do think that some credit to Belgium for sure. The way that they competed. And you mentioned the shellacking of the United States. I think they'll, I it's unfortunate for them that they couldn't play Spain. In a sense that you mentioned Tielemans gets hurt, and then Courtois, um, Onana with the ACL, and you go down the list, and in spite of all that, it took a goalkeeper blunder and a second match in a row winner from Mikel Marino to beat him. So whether it was the prettiest game on their part. Look, Spain were the better team. They deserved to win in many aspects, but by that same coin and token, I give credit to Belgium for and especially because we'll talk about Spain in part two. We'll get there, but just on the Belgian side, I tip my cap to them. They weren't necessarily the most convincing team even throughout probably the first 3 or 4 matches of the tournament. But when it all comes said and done, they made it all the way to the quarterfinal, and maybe a couple of things go their way differently. Maybe they're in the semifinals. Um, but what I do want to do is, that was Friday, last match at SoFi Stadium, which it's hard to believe that SoFi Stadium, it didn't get a semifinal at least, or I mean, that's a whole conversation to be honest with you. But last match at SoFi, noon on a Friday, Spain and Belgium comes and goes, and then that takes us to Saturday. Saturday was the last day of the tournament with 2 matches. It was a little bit bittersweet in that aspect. And 2 matches that have a lot to get into. And I'm sure, we could, like I said, we could be here for a couple of hours, but I want to toss it back to you, man. I'd love to get your thoughts. We could start with Norway and England in chronological order, sake and purposes. Um, yeah, let's get it cracking, man. I want to see what you had to say and your thoughts because we haven't talked about it. Off the record even. So let's get it cracking, man. I want to hear your thoughts on that match.
Yeah, and just your note on SoFi and them not getting a semifinal. Apparently, they were going to get the final, but FIFA's demands were a bit too much for Stan Kroenke, and Stan was like, "You know what, dude? I don't even want you guys anymore. Just get out of my face."
Yeah. Isn't that the same reason why Vegas didn't even get any matches, right? Because Mark Davis didn't want to comply with it. Isn't that, am I wrong in saying that?
I'm not sure about Vegas. I didn't read anything there. I know Chicago was the one. Chicago was,
Chicago, thank you,
yeah,
Chicago. There you
Chicago.
go.
Chicago was the one that was like, "Dude, no, just don't even
Okay.
bother."
Yeah,
I think
because
with
a
Vegas,
lot of
part of it is, dude, that the Heat would absolutely, and I know that, well, they're in a dome, but I think the Heat might have been too much there. I'm not sure about Vegas,
okay.
but Chicago, yeah, that's well known. They just said no.
Okay.
We don't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
want to do
And then if I'm not mistaken, I know with the final being at MetLife, I know there was a lot of political politicking, if you will, from the New Jersey state, the former governor at the time, not the governor anymore, if I'm not mistaken,
Right.
put in quite a little shtick and spiel to get them the final, which I know some people in New
He
Jersey
gave up
are
a lot of
not.
revenue. He gave up a lot of revenue, right, for it to be
Yeah,
at
yeah, yeah. There,
MetLife?
there was
That's
there
right.
was a deal because they've changed governors since then, but the
Yes.
governor at the time, yeah, definitely made a let's just call a spade, a little backroom deal with FIFA to get the
Mhm.
final at MetLife. Because you would think that the final, there would be a lot of places that probably were angling for that, but New Jersey just gave them the best backdoor deal, man.
Yeah, and you know what? After Les Bleus get the 3rd star, I would love to come on, I think, all of us at the Unfiltered Report and just speak on some of the things that aren't talked about because we're loving this tournament, right? We're loving every second of it, but when it's over and there's time for reflection, we can all hop on and talk about those type of things. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, 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 definitely. I would love that, man. Like you said, once the tournament's done and the dust settles, a lot of people might forget about certain things, but we'll make sure we come in and shed some light on it. I mean, shit, even, not to get totally off topic, but, even something as simple as, with the NFL kind of around the corner,
Yeah.
a lot of the big topic of conversation has been, the NFLPA being really pissed off that,
Yes. Yes.
they put in the good grass for the World Cup and they're kind of
Yeah.
saying like, hey, why don't we get the good grass? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
So yeah, a lot of angles we could get into it with that. So yeah, I think once the tournament is done, we can. Yeah, I'd love to get a little all-star lineup, if you will, and to get the whole gang, and have that conversation. But before we get further sidetracked on that, I mean, obviously it's a great sidetrack. We could, it's a part of the natural free flow of the business that we got going on here. But on the subject, and honestly, it's actually a great segue because a lot of the stuff that we could talk about, kind of when the dust settles in the tournament, I think you could use Norway and England and Argentina,
Mhm.
Switzerland, kind of as a little bit of a blueprint of that
Yeah,
in many
yeah,
ways.
100%. 100%. Norway England was my favorite game of the quarterfinals. Um, End to end, especially later on in the game. But within that first half, you saw Norway kind of sitting back, maybe being a little too afraid. I think that the pressure, the high press that England had going in the beginning of the game was a little bit too much, and you saw England on the front foot, but without a goal, and then just some individual brilliance from Skelderup, puts them in front, and it forces England um, to be a little bit more aggressive, and simultaneously Norway's thinking, "Yo, like, all right, we can actually do this. Let's get it going." I thought that was the perfect start that they got the lead early, build up their confidence, and in stoppage time of the first half, we have another controversy. The goal kick from Norway's keeper, Nyland, hits the FIFA camera that is set up on at the stadium to capture all the moments and photos, videos, whatever. Hits the wire, falls down to I forget who, and England as a result get an equalizer heading into halftime, and that completely, definitely changes the trajectory of the game. Big difference being up 1-0 at half in comparison to being tied. And once again, what is FIFA talking about? They're talking about this sensor within the ball. Um, First of all, I don't did anyone have an idea that there was a sensor within the match ball before the tournament even started? Because the first time I heard of this sensor was Portugal, Croatia, where they disallowed Croatia's goal in extra time to tie it
Yeah, we
because
can't
of this
forget about
sensor.
that one either, by the way.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
yeah, that one hasn't been talked about a whole lot either, to be honest with you.
yeah, yeah. So they need to do a better job of explaining the sensor, and to be quite honest with you. But in any rate, they get the equalizer from that, and then, dude, that second half was all Norway. It was all completely Norway. They were on the front foot. They were more aggressive. They were more dangerous, but they don't get a goal. It goes into extra time, and uh, guess what? I mean, it's another game-winning goal off of a rebound. Jude Bellingham, right place, right time, uh, grabs the lead, and then England just do what they do. They took the lead in extra time. Tuchel brings in Dan Burn. They go to their back five, and it was a little bit. It became tough on Norway to try and generate a chance. But Jude is having an exceptional tournament, man. 6 goals, none from a penalty, by the way. And he's determined. He's a man on a mission. Um, I want to speak on Norway, man. They had a breakaway in the first half. They had a 2v1. Sorloth is going down the right side of the field. Erling is gunning it down the middle. And he's unmarked because it's a 2v1. And Sorloth decides to cut in and take a shot that deflects, and Pickford picks up the ball. Counterattack is done. how can you do that? I mean, that is just how on earth can you do that? That's just and, Sorloth is playing out of position, right? I get that, I understand that, but when you have Erling unmarked running down the middle, 2v1 breakaway, I don't care who you are, the right play is to feed him. It's that simple. So that was
Yeah, that
just yeah,
yeah, no, that was bizarre, man. When it happened, when I mean, I mean, I know sometimes it's easy to kind of, play like Monday morning quarterback, if you will, but man, I couldn't
right.
believe he didn't play that pass, dude. I really,
Dude, I mean,
uh,
when the play was going on, I'm screaming at the TV, feed Erling." I mean, like even in the like everyone knew what the right play was in the moment. It's not even looking back at highlights or something. In the moment, everyone knew what the right play was, and he didn't do it.
yeah, and you know what, man? I mean, that changes the complete complexion of the match. If they end up getting the goal, they go up 2-0, and uh, you know, uh, obviously, yeah, I couldn't believe he didn't play the pass. I mean, I think you would rather play the pass and fuck up the pass than not play the
Right,
pass and fuck up the attack. I feel like,
right, right, right.
um,
And then also, I forgot before even moving into extra time, the Norway set piece where Erling um, shoves Elliot Anderson to the ground, VAR review, and they disallow the goal. In real time, when I saw that and I see Erling full extension with his arms, I think you have to call it. I think that was the right call to make. Because and whether or not you think Elliott maybe exaggerated a little bit and fell down is a whole nother thing. But if you look just like maybe 5 seconds before that, Erling does the same thing. Shoves him to kind of create separation, and he doesn't fall down to the ground. But for Erling to extend full with both of his arms, um, I did think that was the right call, and in that instance, fair is fair. And by the way, I mean, just so you know, like, um, for those who don't watch the Premier League regularly, Erling Haaland in the Prem gets away with this all the time. All the time. He gets away with it no matter what. Whether it's crowding the keeper or doing these type of things, he gets away with it all the time. And in this instance, he didn't. And this is what he had to say. At this level, it's small details. Normally, England, you get these decisions. When I'm at Man City, normally it goes my way. Let me
yeah.
repeat
I
that.
mean,
When I'm at Man City, normally it goes my way. I'm like, what? So
yeah.
you're admitting that that you get the calls? What?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time in the tournament Erling Haaland has said some things that have made me kind of, you know, curl my brow for lack of a better term. But yeah,
Right.
man, yeah, I mean, dude, we could be here for a long time talking about the whole ball and the sensor thing too, man. I mean, that was honestly some,
Yeah, I need to do more research on this, and then, like I said, after the tournament's over, it'll be a further deep dive without a doubt.
yeah. So to my understanding, they're actually implementing one of those ball sensors at NBA Summer League right now too.
Right, I
Uh,
remember you were talking to me about that, whether that was off the record or on the record, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're trying to implement this technology basically where they put some kind of chip in the ball. Because actually, I remember the first time I heard about this was with the NFL, where there was a conversation about well, why don't we put a chip in the ball instead of getting the officials to get the chains out, and then they have to get like the fucking index card and do it this way. Like why don't we put a chip in the ball and the ball will tell us whether it's a first down or not? And then now you got this World Cup thing with the chip and look, I think it goes to a broader conversation. We could be here for hours. I think we'll have to probably, this is something we can highlight and then we can deep dive it multiple times and especially after the tournament, like you mentioned, because one of the things I love to talk about, man, is just like the picking and choosing of the implementation of technology
Right,
drives me nuts.
right,
Like I mean, we can even get to it, when we get to Argentina, Switzerland, like, just the implementation of technology almost when like it blows my mind in so many different aspects where it's like we can use the technology in this aspect but not that aspect, or there's some like weird written bylaw where you can do it one way but you can't do it the other way. Like I think like the powers that be really gotta like they gotta go in and really look at some shit, man, because it really blows my mind. Like you either have the technology or you don't. Like,
right.
but to go in and like look, and I think it's almost like a level of gaslighting. Like you look at it. I mean, look, I'll ask you this honestly: did it hit the thing? Yes or no? Like, did the ball hit the wire or whatever we want to call it?
Yeah,
So like that's what I'm saying. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. Like, if any, it's like when like in politics, when you can see with your own two eyes, and then you have politicians like, no, no, you didn't see that, you didn't hear that. Like it's basically the same thing. Like, no, your eyes are lying to you. It's like some 1984 shit, dude. Honestly, it blows my mind. Um, I mean, yeah, don't get me started, man.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
No, I know.
it's just one of those things that doesn't make sense, man. Because it's like you're saying the ball sensor thing or whatever, but if your eyes are clearly telling you that it hit it and you have the technology that shows you that it did, even if the technology in the ball doesn't tell you that, your eyes are telling you that.
Right.
So yeah, look, if I'm Norway, I'd be pissed too. I mean, look, I think the Norwegian manager kind of said it pretty well. He's like, look, we're pissed off about it. We can't believe it, but that's not the reason that we lost. And I think that's a
Exactly.
that's a
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's a humble way of
That's a
looking
great
at it.
response yeah, exactly. I agree.
Yeah, yeah. Look, is it the exact reason why they lost? No. I mean, obviously, there's a million things that happen in a match that like you mentioned. I mean, going back like to Sorloth, if he plays the ball to Erling Haaland, I mean, dude, Haaland finishes that probably 99 times out of 100.
Yeah,
Um, so I mean, look, and then you mentioned you have the disallowed goal where, look, yeah, I'm sure Haaland shoved him because, like you said, he said it himself. He gets away with it all the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
But playing against England, he's not going to get away with that. Like if he does that to Trinidad and Tobago, nobody cares, man. Like, but
He does it to Wolves, right? Nobody
yeah, he does it to Wolves. It's like fuck them. They're getting relegated anyways. But
anyways, yeah.
he does it to England. It's like, hey, you know what? Like, I don't know, man. God, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Um, but yeah, man, it just the picking and choosing of technology really blows my mind, man. Like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and then yeah,
absolutely.
I have to, yeah, I think I have to do some more research into this, you know, ball sensor chip thingy, because like you said, I mean, it wasn't really something that was talked about a whole lot.
No, I had no idea about it until, Portugal, Croatia.
It's something that kind of felt slipped under the surface, and then yeah, we heard about it with Portugal, Croatia. Which, to be honest with you, that's another thing where it's like, what are your eyes telling you versus what is the ball telling you? Like,
Right.
felt fairly, it just feels like you can use that conveniently in many ways. Like, oh yeah, the ball, the technology told us it didn't hit it, so we're right and you're wrong. But it's like all you need is two pairs of eye, not even two pairs, shit. I mean, even shit. Helen Keller probably could have seen that shit, man. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know, dude. Yeah, I don't know, but you know what? Like, look, the Norwegian manager said it best. Look, did it blow their mind? Was it frustrating? Absolutely. Is it the reason they lost? No. And yeah,
Mhm.
look, you got to give credit to England. You know, it's another match where, I know your guy Thomas Tuchel, man. It was another one where we talked about it before the match. You know, it was okay. You know, Norway had a lot of the ball against Brazil. England tactically decided to give Mexico a lot of the ball, especially once England went down to 10 men.
Yep,
What was it gonna look like when they played each other? And, you know, yeah, Norway for the first, up until the hydration break were happy to, sit back, and then they ramped it up. They got their goal, which, by the way, that was a brilliant goal.
it was, yeah.
You know, uh, but yeah, I
And
think
then
it's
and
just
then
one of
yeah, for possession for Norway to against England, it was 48%, against Brazil 66. So, I spoke on that, and I think he knew the assignment. And just on the discussion of Tuchel, did you see his post game interview with some British journalist?
I don't think I actually saw I saw he said some I only saw one part where he was talking about the team. I didn't see anything else though, so you'll have to shed some
Right,
light on
right.
that.
So that's exactly the one. It's the directly after, the on the field, uh, media session. British journalist asked him what he thought of the game. Tuchel said that, I think we got very lucky. We weren't repetitive enough. We weren't this. We weren't that. Just Tuchel being Tuchel, right? He demands perfection. He demands excellence. All of that coming off of that win, and the guys, the British journalist is kind of taken aback, and he's kind of pressing him, and he's like, "Well, what was wrong with the performance? Was it mentality?" And then, so basically, this guy's trying to rage bait Tuchel, right, and start an argument with the team. And Tuchel was like, "No, it has nothing to do with mentality. You can bottle it and sell it. This is why. That's why we won the game, was because of mentality. I'm just saying that we got lucky and it wasn't good enough." And then you had some of the players. I'm talking about Jude Bellingham. He said that that's his opinion, word for word, about the team's performance. And then Nani Madueke, who, by the way, absolutely stunk in the first half. I saw clips of Zlatan saying that, England were playing with 10 men in the first half because Nani made every single worst decision possible. And he also, had something back to say to Tuchel. What I do want to say about Tuchel is this: it's known with him, he demands so much perfection and excellence that sometimes in the way he speaks and communicates, it can rub players the wrong way. It can rub people the wrong way. I'm thinking of, that's what happened in his time at Dortmund, where, he knew what the business model was at Dortmund, but they kept selling his favorite players, and he kind of lashed out in frustration and saying, "How do you expect me to win?" The guy wants to win. He's a winner. So that's what led to his sacking. They're all talking about that. Um, PSG, I'm going to give him a pass because that was a circus, right? When we're talking about Leonardo, and we all know the story with him, and just the way that the things were running at that time before Luis Enrique comes in, and then with Chelsea, he was pretty critical about just they asked too much of him and whatnot, and he was starting to get frustrated, and just him having to manage the team during when we didn't know who the owner was, and all of the sanctions that were placed, and what they could do and couldn't do, and him being asked about Russia Ukraine war when he's a coach, not a politician, and everything. But all of this to say is that one of his faults is this. There's a different way to approach it. I think he can at first say, happy we advanced. I'm proud of the players, but I think this, and this, we need to do this better and whatnot if we want to achieve our ultimate goal. He came in guns blazing, harsh. I get it, but also, who Tuchel is, and I think with the path that England have had at this point, um, they wouldn't be in the semis right now if it were someone else. So it's part of the it's part of Tuchel being Tuchel, and then after that, in when he's speaking in the locker room or wherever they do the media session with everybody, he said, "Hey, at the end of the day, like I'm a coach, I'm a tactician, and I was just pointing out what I saw." And I don't know what the big deal is because I heard many other pundits say the same exact thing. They said England did not play well that day. They were lucky to get through, but now that
Yeah.
they're in the last four, and um, you should be confident because you didn't play your best game, but you advanced. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what the hell the English media is trying to do in terms of trying to split up these players and whatnot. But anyways, they'll figure it out behind closed doors.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kinda said it best. Like, I think, in every sport, there are certain coaches that, it's just their personality, they're intense and, look, when you win, it works, and when you don't, that's when conversations get had. But look, at the end of the day, they won, they advanced. I don't think anybody in who's an England supporter is gonna care how they did it. Look, I mean, I think you said it earlier, like, Norway in the second half were probably the better team. You know, uh, Norway, a couple of things go differently, and we're talking about Norway making it to a semifinal of the World Cup. Like, we talked about it with Belgium, like, Norway even more so than Belgium. Like Norway, or I think, you put them obviously, we're speaking hypothetically, but like, I think look, Norway are a legitimate side. They proved that they are very capable. And yeah, look, I think a guy like Tuchel, like you mentioned, certain managers are very, not every manager is the same. Not every coach is the same. Some people are more like laid back, and some people are more intense. Tuchel is who he is. It's part of the package of what you sign up for. And I think you said it best in one of our previous recordings together. If it was Gareth Southgate in Mexico City, they probably lose. If it was Gareth Southgate against Norway, they probably lose. Is Tuchel perfect? No. I mean, look, could he have communicated that better and whatnot? I'm sure. But, part of what makes him who he is that's who he is. Like, you
Right,
sign up for that. You know that ahead of time. Like, it's not like he's doing something that he hasn't done before. Like,
right, right.
you just look at him. He never looks like he's happy.
Yeah,
Like, they show him on the touchline. He looks like he's like, he looks like a mad scientist out there, honestly. Like, that's part of like what makes him who he is. Um, so yeah, look, I mean, look, English media is gonna do what they're gonna do. And yeah, look, these guys will chop it up behind closed doors. I think, they're not really gonna, as long as they win. Look, it only becomes a conversation when you don't win. I
right.
feel like if you win, it's part of the conversation. But at the end of the day, look, they made it to the semifinals of the World Cup. It doesn't really matter how it happens. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be, the most sexy brand of sport. They're not there to entertain people. They're there to win. Like, and yeah, look, yeah, I see no problem in his comments. I really don't, like, and especially because that's who he is. That's what he does. Like, but I did see, yeah, okay, so we did see the same, because I saw what Jude said, where Jude said, "Yeah, that's his opinion, blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah," but, you know, oh, man, at the end of the day, look, even Jude Bellingham, like, Jude Bellingham never played like this under Southgate, for example. Like, I mean, obviously, Jude Bellingham's always been a spectacular talent and a spectacular player, but yeah, he's having a great tournament. You mentioned earlier, he's got 6 goals, none from penalties. He's got, what is it, 4 in the last 2 matches. Um he's playing his best when it matters, and I think with a guy like Jude Bellingham, you kind of forget how young he is too. Because he's we've been talking about him for such a long time. He's, what is it, like 23?
Yeah, he's 23.
That's crazy, dude. He's doing all this at 23. Like, he hasn't even sniffed his prime yet. Like, that's kind of the crazy part of it all. So yeah, I mean, look, Uh, yeah, look, I see no problem in Tuchel's comments. I really don't.
Yeah, same. Me too. And before moving on to Argentina, Switzerland, what were your thoughts on the penalty call that was awarded to Jet Spence, and then they review it and they overturned it?
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, I'm glad you brought that up. I thought it was the right call to not give him a penalty for that. Uh, it's what with all the benefits of technology, there are a lot of faults of the I mean, we'll talk about it. The tech, and we've talked about it continuously, and we'll continue to do so. Like, look, the technology in some aspects works, and sometimes it doesn't. I think it's one of those where when it happens in real time and you're watching it with the naked eye, it looks like a foul. And when it happened and he went down, you see it live, you think, okay, well, that's probably a penalty. And then when they slow freeze frame it, I mean, it's kind of like what happened with Flo Balogun and the red card in many ways. Like when you slow it down and you get like the frame by frame, it gives you a different picture. So yeah, I think it was. I have no problems with them taking away the penalty in that aspect. I feel like it's one of those things where it's like if you're driving and you slam on your brakes so that way the guy behind you rams into you. Like that's kind of what it looked like when you freeze frame it. But I don't know. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Did you think that was a foul, or do you think they did the right thing in letting that letting that kind of overturn it essentially?
In real time, I saw, I think it was Oscar Bob. Um, he put his foot uh, in between Jed, and that kind of forced him to fall. So in real time, I was like, okay, that's a penalty. And then, yeah, like you said, when you slow it down, I thought it was the right call.
Yeah, it's one of those where look, like I said, with the technology, like, look, it does it have its faults? Absolutely, and we'll talk about it. The implementation of it and the usage of it, but yeah, I think they got the call right. Speaking of Oscar Bob too, when him and Noosa came on, that was big reason of why Norway were probably the better side in the second half. In the second 45, before England scored in the extra 30. Those guys came on and they gave him some life. Shout out to our guy Vince. I know Vince loves Oscar Bob.
Yeah,
They came on and they did their thing. But yeah, I think it would have been a harsh penalty to when you slow it, like, yeah, like you said, in real time it looked like a foul, but when you freeze frame it, you slow it down. I think they got the call right.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And
All right,
finally,
man.
to the last game of the quarterfinals, Argentina, Switzerland. We we saw Alexis McAllister off a set piece. Argentina take the early lead. Things are settling down. You didn't see much threat from Switzerland in the first half, and then in the second half, some individual brilliance from Dan and Doy. They get the equalizer, and in that first 20-ish minutes up until the red card, we'll get into the red card in a little bit. Um, Switzerland had the momentum. They were on the front foot. They were in Argentina's half. They settled into the game. They generated more chances. They got things going. And then Briolambolo decides to take a nosedive and do the dive of the decade. So while I and others have been very critical of calls for Argentina in the past in this tournament, this one, fair is fair. And in the rule book, it does say anyone who does simulation gets a yellow. and Bolo and Briel was on a yellow beforehand, so he needs to know that and understand that. And dude, I mean, that was dive of the decade, you know? Like
So
um
you think it was a rightful second yellow, is what you're
yeah,
saying?
dude, it's part of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
they did
I okay,
he dove
okay.
clearly. I mean, you know, and he was on a yellow before. So, and bro, you have
Yeah,
the ball. Like, why are you even trying to? What are you trying to do in that instance? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because because the ref gave the yellow to Paredes, right? And
yeah,
probably VAR upstairs looked at the replay and said, "Hey, take a look. I think you gave the yellow to the wrong person." Um, and you can rescind that yellow and not give a yellow for definitely. But when a dive so egregious is done like that, you got to give it. It's
okay,
in the rule book, you know,
okay.
and
Yeah,
it killed the
I
game.
hear you.
I understand that. I get that, but that's Breel and Bolo doing harm to his team. You know,
I hear that. I hear
don't blame the rule book, and then in this instance,
I hear that.
blame Embolo. I don't see any controversy within
Okay.
this one, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, you know what, man? I think it's good that a part of the beauty of these conversations is that you get kind of like you get multiple sides of the same coin, because the way that I look at it, I think by the definition of the law, and like you said, by in the rule book itself, it's a second yellow. I get that, but I think maybe the gripe that I have is not necessarily that part of it. I think more so, I think my gripe is that if they wouldn't have given a yellow in the first place, it probably would have been let go altogether.
Very true.
Like,
Very true.
and I
Yes.
think that
Yeah.
that's more
You're
of my gripe.
you're right.
Like
You're right.
by the letter of the law, it's a second yellow, especially when you go in and what is it, the mistaken identity thing that they've done. Um, I think I read that that is only the 4th time in the World Cup where that's happened, where someone has been sent off for that. I think there were 3 other, previous instances, one of which was my guy Asamoah Gyan in 2006. Um, but yeah, look, I think it's somewhere in the middle. Like, yeah, look, did he dive? Absolutely. By the definition of the law, is it a second yellow? Yeah, I won't deny that part of it. I just think the part that kind of rubs me the wrong way is that, I mean, you see a lot of these guys dive all the time. And, one of the positives I'll take from the tournament is that I think there have been a lot of instances where they've let play continue. Like a guy will go down and instead of blowing a whistle, they'll just keep playing and they're like,
Mhm.
get up, and I don't like that. If it's not a foul, it's not a foul. Like, if they want to roll around on the ground, like, let them, like, I get it, like, but I just feel like it was one of those things where the problem that I have is that if they just don't call anything, then they don't have to go in and give anybody a yellow. You know what I mean? Like, they could have just let it go. But yeah, I think by the definition of the law, yeah, it's a little tough for me. Like, I think some part of me thinks a little bit. Uh, yeah, a little bit of it. I felt. I don't know, it felt a little cheap, maybe, maybe a little shitty, a little harsh, but at the same time, I think you said it well, but yeah, look, it was an obvious dive, um, and he should know better being on a yellow card and not do that in the first place. I just think it's one of those things where if they don't call the yellow on Paredes in the first place, they just let it go, dude. Play continues, but um I know a lot of the narrative probably out there will be, Argentina getting another benefit of the doubt and FIFA wanting them to make it. I mean, Argentina, England, I mean, you don't have to sell that. I mean, that sells
Mhm.
itself. And, I'm sure it would have been a lot harder for FIFA to sell Switzerland and England than it would have been to sell Argentina and England, and I get that argument. I almost don't deny it, maybe. I'm not even in a but yeah, I think it's somewhere in the middle. Like I hear what you're saying. Yeah, look, by the definition of it, yeah, it was the second yellow. He dives. I mean, I mean, shit, he could probably won a diving gold medal at the Olympics. I'm sure. But at the same time, like it's just I don't know. It's somewhere in the middle for me. Like I see the argument, but I don't fully get it at the same time because I feel like even giving a yellow card to Paredes would have been pretty harsh, to be honest with you. And so if it would have just been a regular foul and or just play on and let's move on, the match continues, but it's just I think the part that rubs me the wrong way is it goes back to the implementation of technology. Like I feel like you could use that implementation of technology at so many points throughout any of these matches throughout the tournament, and you could probably go in and give someone a yellow for diving. So it's not that I disagree with the call or the letter of the law, but I feel like I see so many of these guys fucking diving like and flopping around, and it just feels like a selectively enforced thing, and then just kind of the weird working of the rule where it's like, oh, we gave Paredes a yellow, now we have to go in and take away his yellow and give the other guy a yellow. Like I don't know, it's just one of those weird things where it's almost like the law is right and it's wrong at the same time in a weird way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, I definitely agree that if if the ref doesn't give Paredes a yellow, this is just it's not even a conversation. So I understand that. I hear that. Just in this instance, Argentina have been getting a lot of shtick, and while I'm not going to dive into whether or not that's warranted or not, on this one, I do think if he doesn't dive, then this isn't even a conversation. I think
I get you. I hear you.
I think
I hear
Briel
you.
just needs to be
He does
he
it to
needs
himself. I get
a
it.
little
Yeah,
more
yeah,
little more awareness type of deal. But
yeah.
beyond that, in extra time, when you're 10 men, you want it to go to penalties, of course, and individual quality and brilliance from Julian Alvarez, perfect placement, everything. And after that, I mean, Switzerland have to, do everything that they can to try and find an equalizer. And then, Lautaro puts a bow on it with
Yeah.
with the third goal, and Argentina move on.
Yeah, I think part of what made it tough for Switzerland is that just the timing of it, because that was right when they had all the momentum in the
Oh,
match
I
too.
know, I know. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know so it's tough. But yeah, I think on the scale of favorable decisions, like you said, we won't get into it, but I do think that maybe like I think there should have been more outrage about Messi not getting a red card against Algeria, and
yes.
and then like, and then maybe Egypt and whatnot. I
Mhm.
think this one, like you mentioned, like yeah, he dove. He did dive. Like I can't deny he did. He dove. Like like I said, I think it's in the middle of it where I hear what you're saying and I agree with you. I don't disagree, but I also think that it's just one of those things where as much as it's on Embolo to not do that in the first place, I also feel for the guy because I don't think that in the heat of the moment, I don't think he was thinking, I'm gonna get sent off for this. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
think it was just one of those things where, I'm sure if he could play it and you could see the emotion on his face too. I mean, he
I
couldn't believe
know.
it. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
felt bad for the guy, it definitely it's a
Well,
tough
did you
pill to
also hear
swallow.
Zakaria, when the ref is with his mic on is reversing the call and everything? Did you hear Zakaria? He's like, "No, no."
I mean, he couldn't believe it either.
I know, I know. No, the whole team couldn't. I know.
Yeah, they couldn't believe it. But I look at the end of the day, uh, it was going to be a tall task for Switzerland without uh, 10 men, and they equalized, they did all that, and then once they went down to 10 men, it just felt like at some point, Argentina are going to find their way through this and advance. And then, yeah, I mean, dude, that Alvarez goal, I mean, one of the goals of the tournament for sure. I mean, that was a thing of beauty. I mean, there's nobody on planet Earth that's saving that thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, Argentina moved through at the end of the day. Like they move on and look, credit to Switzerland. Similar theme, with Belgium, Norway, and Switzerland, like all three of them, even though they didn't win. I mean, we talked about it in the preview, like that we had the other day. Like that maybe they weren't gonna win, and it rained true. I think all the the favorites won in all four of the quarterfinal matchups. And France Morocco. Shout out to you, man. That was the least competitive of the four, and all the
Mhm.
other three were even, not even,
Yeah.
but they were close.
Yeah.
Maybe not
Yeah.
even, but they were close. They weren't, like it could have gone either way. Maybe if a couple of things go here or there.
Definitely
Um,
the most even game was of course Norway England.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, look, I think, like, I guess what I should rephrase, like, what I meant, because I caught myself in the middle of that sentence, and I'm glad you correct me. Yeah, the most even was Norway, England. Spain were the better team, Argentina were the better team, but at least in the sense that even though they were the better team and they did win, Belgium and Switzerland didn't bend over.
Right, and to have 2 of the 4 games go to extra time,
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah, that
yeah,
too.
yeah.
And no shootout.
Right.
So that's also, it doesn't happen all the time where, you get 2 extra time matchups and no penalties.
Yeah.
Speaking of, putting a bow on it, before we kick this baby over to the next one, and we get down to business over there, any concluding thoughts, as it pertains to this particular recording?
Another coach is out. Senegal's head coach, Papetiao, is gone, and I believe now we are at 14 or 13 coaches having been sacked or resigned from this tournament. I mean, we're approaching, like, dangerous territory here in terms of how many coaches have resigned or left, but, I
Yeah,
feel like
I mean, shit, that's like, what,
every
25%
time
of the whole tournament.
yeah, dude, every time you're asking me, any concluding thoughts, I bring up another coach that's that's being left that's moving on. So no, that's it there
It's an
though.
unforgiving business, man.
I know.
Being a coach is tough, man. Like, I remember I saw something a while back that, I mean, it has nothing to do with the World Cup, but I remember, I saw something a while back where, I think it was about college sports, and it was something where, like, one in 2 college coaches gets a divorce or something like that, or 1 in 3, like, it's a hard job, man, to be a coach in
Yeah,
any
from the
sport.
demands of the job. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard job, man. You're the first guy. You're the first guy to go. You're the scapegoat.
Mhm.
That's an unforgiving business for sure. But yeah, dude, what a 13, 14. It's funny you met the other day we talked about Portugal's new manager. I saw he had an interesting quote where, you mentioned it the other day. I saw something he said where he said basically like, I get Ronaldo to play hard. I get Ronaldo to not play, and there's no issues. Like, basically saying that, like, I can control Cristiano a little bit. Like, I can tell him when to not, like, you're not gonna play, or I'm gonna sub you out, or you're gonna play this way or that way. Like, that's kind of what he said. I don't know, I'd have to pull up the exact quote, but
I saw another
um
thing. He says, "If I can coach at 71, Cristiano can play until he's 50."
Yeah, shit, right. Look, I think it's getting more and more likely we're gonna see
I know.
Ronaldo in 2030, especially because 'cause they're gonna be hosting, right, with them, Spain, and
Yeah.
Morocco.
Yeah.
So, he's gonna probably wanna be there. It wouldn't shock me if 4 years from now we come over here. I mean, it's hard to fast forward 4 years, obviously. I mean, 4 days feels like a lifetime. 4 years is, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if we're sitting here, it's 2030, you and I chopping it up, live on the air. Shit, at that point, maybe we'll have a couple of corporate sponsors or something. We'll sell out by then. I'm just kidding, but uh, it wouldn't surprise me if we're coming in here in 2030 and we're talking about the tournament and it's Cristiano Ronaldo in Portugal and fuck. I mean, shit, even Messi, man. Like at this point, it's like LeBron James, dude. Like I mean, we're jerking these guys off, and we're gonna jerk them till the wheels fall off. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh my god.
yeah,
Yep.
but yeah,
Yep.
yeah, Senegal, yeah, another one bites the dust, man. Yeah, like you said, with 13, 14, shit. By the end of it, it'll probably be about almost half.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, tough for him though. Senegal. That's a tough one for them. They were 2 goals up with 8, 5 minutes in stoppage time to go, and they blow it. Obviously some circumstances that play into that, but that's a tough one for them. For him probably to get canned, that's a tough one because in an alternate universe, maybe they beat Belgium, but if anything, I'm surprised it took that long. You know,
Yeah, yeah, I know. I agree.
but yeah, I'm interested to see what Senegal do. They're on the up and up in Africa, and they're
Mhm.
one of the more talented sides, and it's going to be a big decision for them to see who replaces him. So that's going to be another thing we'll come on, just like we did with Portugal, and they hired a new guy. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on that aspect with Senegal and who they end up bringing in.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well,
Alright.
this was a fun one. We'll be right back in just a second after a non-sponsored commercial break. We'll probably just break it up into two separate episodes, but part
Yeah.
one and part two essentially. But yeah, man, part one was a blast, and we'll get it cracking with part two in just a second.
Yes, sir.